That's not an alien. That's not an alien. That's not an alien. That's not an alien. Rex then picked up a pointer and stood in front of the board like a school teacher. His opening question was filled with genuine intrigue, almost bordering on enthusiasm. So, Major General, how goes the First Strike campaign? Big Mac was already over the border into Enthusiastan. He was practically planning a bombing raid on its capital. Not bad at all. He almost seemed rather smug, in fact. We've decided to go with the term Operation Detonator. That's what the public seem to like best. He paused to express this in a different way, with as much dismissal as he could manage. Or hate the least. Rex ignored the least mostness of this statement. He was too busy beaming with a self-congratulatory grin at the Major General. He could now afford to look smug himself. I knew you'd like that one, sir. I'm quite proud of it myself. Madge Gen stroked Rex's smugness. Yes, it has a nice mixture of reminding people this war is about debt. He suddenly clenched his fist and gritted his teeth. And what will happen to them if they don't pay up? Rex's smugness turned into an all-out assault on Enthusiastan City with 5 platoons and drones. I was going to use it in a campaign for a leading bank, but when you came along I thought... He was trying to sound mostly magnanimous for maximum effect. He hoped that Mac would appreciate the sufficient sacrifice he had made. The Mads Gen only had drones for his own achievements. He waved a dismissive hand with not a jot of concern over hurting others' feelings, or the possible revenue loss from that big spending bank. There was definitely little concern from the mayor of Enthusiastan City. His feelings and his entrails were cast to the 4 winds by now. Save the palaver for later. Rex wasn't about to nibble on the hand that fed him with quibbling. There was no nibbling or quibbling. He just let the matter drop. Fair enough. He did, however, dare to question this concept. He was half intrigued, but also half concerned. It was almost as if Glenda's concerns had rubbed off on him. And is it about debt, sir? Mac was majorly dismissive and generally unconcerned. I'm sure there's some element of that in there somewhere. He made the universal money-rubbing gesture with a confident smirk. But the hip pocket nerve is always a good place to aim your propaganda weapon at a time like this. Rex ignored the money motivation and returned to his own side of the propaganda weapons research. He didn't want his entrails scattered to any of the winds, so curtailed his curiosity immediately. He had been in the advertising business long enough to know that personal feelings were an expensive luxury. They were soon sold to the highest bidder for casting in a windward direction. He was almost apologising for daring to have such bankward dreams and aspirations. Even worse, he had the temerity to dare to bore a busy military man with such civilian trivialities. It wasn't too trivial to be added to the extra expenses column, though. Mac let the 4 winds do their work and carried on with his. Temerity was quickly forgotten as he went back to business. So what's this new term for friendly fire you've come up with then? Well, Major General, the boys and girls on research have found that most people find the term friendly fire rather, shall we say... He began to falter a bit and went all apprehensive. Rex struggled for the right words, as if trying to spare someone's feelings. He'd have to find them first. Mac tried to help him be suitably sparing. Ironic? The Major General's offering was made with no hint of black humour, though there might have been some bemusement in there. It was always hard to tell with a Major General. Rex dismissed this matter-of-factly, but diplomatically, of course. He fully appreciated the supreme effort of will and generosity that Mac had been bestowing upon him with this offering. He tried to sum all of this up as best he could. No. Madge Gen was almost turning this into a game of 20 questions. Patronising? Rex threw diplomacy under a bus. No. Heartless and psychopathic. Max pointed at Rex with an almost cheeky smirk and not a hint of moral concern. My next guess. Market research has shown that the general public would prefer a term better fitting the true nature of the concept. He waved his hands to vaguely waft away the truth of that nature. We need a word that would give a sense of tragic loss, but doesn't allude to military incompetence. His dismissive wave almost seemed to be brushing away any such loss and any possible grimace of dismay that might have tried to accompany it. Mac didn't grudge Connie's response. He simply nodded with total understanding, and possibly first-hand experience. Indeed. Rex built up the tension a bit with his long-winded explanation. We tried phrases like false fatality and passive action. He scanned the face of MG for a flicker of intrigue. All he got was an open grimace of dismay. Rex wasn't worried, as his argumental crux was still on the horizon. He sped it up a bit for wind shortening effect. "But we think we've come up with a real winner here." He beamed another grin and removed a cloth from the board. Just in case MG McM missed the significance of the message, Rex pointed out the words written on the board as he proudly read them out loudly and with emphasis. "Reported as accidentally mistargeted by own soldiers." The Major General didn't have to pause and let the full impact of this concept hit him. It hit him like a rampaging tank in the face. He instantly frowned and stood up. Mac himself damned such long-winded slogans. "Oh no, that's no good. That's no good at all." His pointy finger was full of contentious bones and angry contempt for these words. "That's far too long." Rex watched Mac start to pace impatiently and angrily around the room, protesting and waving his hands in a dismissive way. "Don't you understand, man?" He strode around in an increased annoyance and waved an explanatory hand at Rex as if he was explaining to a 5-year-old by holding a P and waving it in Rex's face. "We need something for when the newsreader is reading out the latest casualty figures." I usually refer to it as the precision gesture. You need precision to hold onto a P without dropping it or squashing it flat. This is especially so when you are waving it around in anger. Rex watched Mac's hand waving almost in a dismissive manner, as if brushing away an intruding moth. "We'll need a term that will slip off their tongue quickly and easily so that the listener will miss it and think that they are talking about enemy casualties." Meredith hammered home this point with a quick missing gesture. "I can call you Meredith, can I?" The gesture wasn't missing, it was like a swing and a miss in a game of table tennis. He then pointed a finger that didn't miss Rex's face. "If the casualty rates from friendly fire get anywhere near as high as during the Gulf War, the viewing public might just mistakenly believe we wiped out a whole battalion of lefty soldiers." He made a big sweeping gesture to indicate just how big a whole battalion of lefty soldiers was and how far they had been wiped. He then went back to his precision P grasping. It was not too much though, and not too little. It was just enough precision to keep his P precisely where he wanted it and in good condition. "With any luck, we could gain their unswavering patriotic support through sheer incompetence alone." He was less admonishing and almost congratulating himself for thinking along these lines. If only he could get Rex to think in such a linear fashion. Rex continued to watch all of this angry ranting and precision gesturing as if he were a 5-year-old being suitably chastised. He was allowing Mac to have his rant, almost lulling him into a false sense of outrage before he pounced and delivered his carefully crafted crux. He had been waiting for this argument to finish. When it did, he held up a finger to stop Madge Gen from melting down any further. "Ah, but Major, that's exactly what this news term is all about." Mac wouldn't be placated so easily. Not when he had the return of the dreaded rank redress issue added to his woes. "Major General!" He pointed at the stars on his shoulder. "I have 3 stars, I'll have you note." Rex was on a roll, and his momentum would not be stilled so easily. He didn't even have time to go all mock apologetic. He may have done this deliberately. The greater the outrage before, the greater the reversal of direction when he finally got cruxed. Yes, indeed. He pointed at the words on the board again. "This is just the full version of the term. These letters make up an acronym." Rex's clever crafting began to create curiosity in his client, or confusion. Major Gen stopped his fuming and listened with intrigue. He hadn't grasped the concept yet, but he was reaching out for it. No doubt he wanted to grab it with precision. He was no longer facing an errant toddler and fully expected to be cruxed in the face any second now. He may even have been preparing his complete reversal of direction. It wasn't going to be a retreat, just a reappraisal. Rex duly cruxed him between the eyes as he pointed to the letters in capitals. He read each one out emphatically as he pointed to them. RAAMBOS. Then he pulled off another cloth to reveal one word in big red letters. He read it out as a single word with smugness in red emphasis. RAAMBOS. The Major General was duly cruxed and stood up to look at the resulting acronym closely. Rex hammered his point home with precision, but without the accompanying gesture. He pointed at Mac instead and connived him with his conniving knife. "So when the newsreader announces to the world the unfortunate death of 200 of your own soldiers through the stupidity of your own army, he won't say death through friendly fire." Mac reined his natural inclination to indignate or grudge con. He listened in a concept-grasping way and almost began to grow in excitement. Rex continued his explanation and tension release with another point to the big red letters. He'll call them 200 RAAMBOS. He tapped the board for emphasis and extra smugness. Everybody will think they died in some sort of selfless act of bravery instead of an act of gross incompetence. Rex allowed himself the luxury of folding his arms in an almost triumphant stance. He dared to be smug in the face of overwhelming military force. Your patriotic support will be assured. Mac was teetering on the verge of a frown, but quickly reversed direction so completely and utterly. He broke into a big beaming smile instead. He was most impressed and not afraid to show it. Hopefully he might have been rather embarrassed at not having grasped this concept at the first sight. With precision, no doubt. Hopefully he was covering up his embarrassment with an extra layer of impression. That was probably Rex's cunning plan all along, and Mac fell for it. He grasped the concept too tight. It made his peas squish and splatter everywhere. By jingles, man! You Aussies aren't as dumb as we Americans always thought you were. Rex was about to blush at this compliment, but then he paused at its accompanying insult. There was also the mispronunciation of Aussies as Ussies. This was so typical of Americans that he let it pass him by. As for the slur against his nation's intelligence, he tried to let this pass him by as well. Maybe Mac had turned his embarrassment into thinly veiled contempt. Oh, thank you. He allowed himself a frown of indignation, but kept it pea-sized. I think. He let this slur pass onto the pages of his expense account, though, under sundry expenses. Mac was in no mood for Aussie indignation and any possible fallout from such feelings. He was too busy being enthused at the intellect on display. That's brilliant! Not content with being impressed, he took his enthusiasm even further. Now, what about the t-shirts? Why not subscribe to youtube.com/ScuddyArk and live happily ever after in your dreams?